So, I have a confession to make. Earlier today, I filmed a full November reading wrap up, but I ended up scrapping it while I was editing the video because I just hated everything about it. I hated the way I sound. hated the way I looked on camera. I hated my accent. So I ended up just throwing away all of the files and just saying forget it. And I ended up deciding to try again because honestly, this is YouTube and YouTube is supposed to be fun. And I'm somehow making it unfun by being super critical of myself. Ultimately, I just want to talk to you all about books and about reading. And that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to talk to the camera and I'm going to discuss the books I read in the month of November. And whatever comes out of this video is just going to be what it is. Whatever comes out of this is what I'm going to post because honestly, it's almost midnight and I'm tired and I have to go into the office tomorrow, but I really need to just get over myself because I'm being ridiculous. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to post it and I'm going to just let it be what it is. With that being said, in the month of November, I read the total of four novels and one manga, and I have them here with me. And I'm just going to discuss them all one by one. So, the first book that I finished is The Mad Wife by Megan Church. Now, I've already posted a discussion about this book on my channel. And if you haven't seen it already, I'll link it below. But this story follows a woman named Lulu Mayfield. And Lulu Mayfield is fighting to keep up this facade of being the perfect housewife. Lulu is living in the 1950s. And of course, back then, there was a very specific image that women had to maintain. And in Lulu's effort to maintain this image of perfection, her mental health is starting to decline. At the height of her mental decline, a new family ends up moving in across the street. The wife of this new family, her name is Bitsy, and she seems to have it all together. And in Lulu's mind, Bitsy must be hiding something because there's no possible way that her life is just this perfect. It seems like, from the reader's perspective, the presence of Bitsy is shining a light on all of Lulu's insecurities in a way that Lulu is struggling to manage. And from the perspective of her family and friends in the story, it seems like Lulu is pushing further and further towards the brink of insanity. So, this book introduced me to a lot of medical procedures that were done on women during the 1950s. And it was horrific. I ended up taking a moment to actually look them up because several of them were ones that I had never heard of before. And I was shocked to discover that many of those medical practices are still performed on women today. I think that even if you are not a wife, even if you're not a mother, even if you're not even a woman, I think there's a lot of value in this story because a lot of what goes on in this book is still relevant to what women are experiencing today in medical settings in our country. So I ended up initially giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars, but that was a couple of weeks ago. And I think now that I've had the time to sit with it and think more about it, I think I want to bump that up to 4.5 out of 5 stars. And that's mainly because this book has really stayed with me. It's stayed with me in a way where I pretty much talk about this story with anybody that will listen. I've encouraged all of the readers I know at this point to just give it a chance. In addition to that, it has inspired me to seek out other books that explore similar themes. And I ended up coming across this book, which I believe this is a new release, and it is called The Book Club for Troublesome Women. And this book takes place a decade later than The Mad Wife. This book takes place in the 1960s, but based on the synopsis, it seems like a lot of the themes that were explored in The Mad Wife, this book also explores. So I went ahead and I got it, and I'm really excited to read it. I've never been much of a historical fiction reader, but The Mad Wife has really inspired me to expand. Um, and because of that, I think it's well worth the 4.5 stars that I'm rating it. The only reason why I'm deducting points is because of one, the book's pacing, and two, I really didn't like the ending of the story. But beyond that, I think it is a must read, and I think you all should absolutely check it out if you haven't done so already. So, the next book that I read is titled Is Me They Follow, and it is written by Janine A. Cook. And this story feels like it's autobiographical, but I believe the author said that it's not. But this book follows a bookkeeper who is in the process of opening up her own bookstore. The bookkeeper, she suffers from this illness that causes her to faint whenever she has physical contact with another person. And obviously, this illness has had a negative impact on her ability to develop connections with other people, especially romantic ones. So, what's interesting about this story is the fact that despite not being able to develop strong romantic connections for herself, the bookkeeper indirectly influences the romantic connections between other characters in the story. This book, I believe, is considered literary fiction, and there's also some romance, but there's also like a magical realism twist to it. So I think the concept of the book is really cool, but I ended up not liking it at all. There were certain topics that the book introduced and kind of dropped. And I think that because of that, it made it difficult for me to connect with the characters. I think that if the author spent more time discussing the background of the main character's story and all of the events and troubles that she experienced in childhood, I think if we spent more time in those areas, I would have been able to attach myself more and understand the character better. But since we only got brief glimpses into the main character's background, I feel like that prevented me from being attached or even invested in all of the things that she was going through. In the end, I ended up giving this book a 1 out of 5 stars, and I'm really sad about it because I really wanted to like it. This is her debut novel, but I really did not like her writing style. There were parts of the story that I felt were confusing, and it just didn't click with me. And it's unfortunate because I thought it would be a really cool book. I do know that Janine will be coming out with another book in 2026, and I am more than willing to give her a second chance. So I'll definitely be reading her next book, and I'm going to see how that goes. And I'm just hoping that maybe her future writings connect with me more. So, the next book that I read was Remarkably Bright Creatures, and it was written by Shelby Van Pleet. Now, this was a popular book a few years ago, but I never took a moment to actually spend time reading it. I've seen like several people that attend the one of the book clubs that I go to have this book, but I never was really invested in seeing whatever it was about. But this past November, another book club that I was in, this was the book of the month. So I ended up reading it and I ended up really enjoying it. So this book follows a woman who is grieving named Tova. So Tova lost her son tragically 30 years ago, and the details surrounding his death are a bit mysterious. And Tova has never really gotten over what happened. She never really got over the loss of her son. She never really let go of the questions that she had surrounding his death that were left unanswered after the police investigated the incident. So Tova, in order to cope, she ends up taking a job at her local aquarium. And through that job, she ends up developing a very unlikely friendship with an octopus named Marcellus. Now, Marcellus turns out to be much, much smarter than all of the other characters in the book, including all of the humans, because as it turns out, he happens to have information regarding the death of Tova's son that none of the other characters are aware of. He ends up leaving clues for Tova to help her figure out the mystery surrounding what happened to her son. This book is very touching. It is very sweet and it's a bit sad. And I did find it entertaining, but the only thing is I quickly figured out the plot early in the story. So less than 100 pages in, I figured out the plot twist. And for me, it sort of felt like I was just waiting for the characters of the book to catch up to the conclusion that I had already came to. So I think that took away from the experience for me a little bit. But overall, it was very enjoyable and I liked it. I found Marcellus to be very funny. I liked the conclusion of the book. One of the characters kind of annoyed me, but I feel like that was the point of his character. So I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and I would recommend reading this if you're looking for something that's slightly sad but has a feel good ending. Next up, I read The Five Broken Blades by May Corlin. And this book follows a group of assassins who are on a mission to kill a king who they believe to be immortal. Now, this group of assassins, they are the deadliest people in this fictional country called Usain. And despite the fact that they all have to work together in order to kill the king, they really don't know or trust each other. And over the course of the book, they are all going back and forth in their minds as to whether or not they should continue on this process of attempting to complete this assassination or if they should abandon the mission. Oftentimes, they are questioning the trustworthiness of each other. And I found it to be really entertaining. Um, the only downside to this book, I would say, is that it ended up being much more of a romance than what I would have liked. So, in the beginning of the book, it started off as there being one romantic connection. And that romance was between two men who had been friends since childhood. But by the end of the book, all of the characters were kind of dating each other. And I don't know how I feel about that. I wish that the book would have spent more time on the political aspects of the story instead of relying on the romantic connections between the characters. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm just tired of romanticy type books, but I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Um, there are two additional books in this series, and I do happen to own them. So I will be continuing this story. I don't know when, but since I own the books, I will definitely read them. And I'm hoping that the next two books in the series don't lean so heavily on the romance portion of it. I would rather there be more action, more political suspense than what I got in the first book. But overall, I did find it enjoyable, and I would recommend reading it if you haven't heard of this series or haven't read it already. The last book that I read really isn't a book. It's a manga, which is a Japanese graphic novel, or maybe it's more of a comic. I don't know. But it was the guy she was interested in wasn't a guy at all. And this is my first GL manga, and I didn't know what to expect really. But it follows the story of a girl named Aya. And Aya is this really pretty it girl. And she is very popular at school. However, there are certain aspects of herself that she feels like she needs to hide from all of the other cool kids at school, specifically her taste in music. So everybody else at school is really into like pop music, but Aya has an interest in alternative music like Nirvana and Willow Smith. So, because her taste in music is not well received by her peers, she sort of keeps it to herself. And one day after school, she decides to visit her local music store. And while at the store, she ends up meeting one of the guys that works there. When she sees the guy, she immediately falls head over heels for him. And her and the guy really hit it off. So the next day, she goes back to school and she ends up telling all of her classmates how she met this really amazing guy. The thing is, what she doesn't realize is that the guy that she met at the music store is not a guy at all. The guy that she met at the music store is actually one of the other female students in her class. So, this female student, her name is Masuki, and she actually sits next to Aya, but she kind of goes unnoticed at school because she kind of stays to herself. So, as the story unravels, we get to see how Aya's and Masuki's relationship develops. And we also get to experience the blowout of what ends up happening after Aya discovers the truth. So I really enjoyed this. And like I mentioned, this is my first GL manga. I love the design of the characters. It's so beautiful. I love the coloring. I thought the plot was amazing, and I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. I do expect to read the remaining volumes in the series. Right now, there is only another volume that is released, so there's a volume 2. But I do know that volume 3 is supposed to come out at some point in December. And when it does come out, I'm definitely going to go get it because I am so curious as to what ends up happening in this book. So if you do read manga and you're looking for something new, I would recommend this. It is beautifully done, it is very tasteful. And I think it's just beautiful artwork overall. It's a good story, it was good art, and I can't recommend this enough. So that was all that I read in the month of November. So four novels and one manga. And yeah, overall, I think it was a okay reading month. I do have a whole stack of books that I'm working through as it relates to what I want to read in December. I'm thinking of, let me see, one, two, three, four, five. I think there are five books that I would like to finish. Like I mentioned earlier, I usually only read like three books a month. So five might be a little bit ambitious, but I will be taking some more days off for the Christmas holiday. So hopefully I'll be able to get through all of those as well. Um, if you made it this far in the video, thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully, one of these books make it onto your TBR. And if you end up reading any of them, let me know what you think of them. I would love to hear what you have to say. And that's pretty much it. I hope you all have an amazing night, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.